Trendsetter, I don't know how we would have gone without Instagram and Facebook this week. I mean, crazy goes down for a few hours and everything goes hectic, changes our whole schedule. But we're able to come and do a another show for you here, the HSP podcast for you on the Give a Shot Network. So glad we could do that. We're powered by Fast Break Coffee. I am Jeff Martin alongside my tag team partner, Trendsetter Brian Bergo. We are the Jersey Wrecking Crew. Follow us on all our social media at ISBOB Podcast. Of course, we're on Apple Podcasts as well and all social media platforms as well as podcast platforms for HSP Podcast. Trendsetter, how you doing, man? We're just coming off of AEW Revolution, and now we're going to talk some Raw. Maybe also somebody is Hall of Fame bound, but we're going to get started by recapping Raw. But how was your weekend, man? How did everything go? Did you catch AEW Revolution? We're going to talk about it in just a little bit, but very nice weather here in the East Coast. And then, unfortunately, comes this week. But what are you going to do? You can't win them all. What's going on, Trent? How you doing?
I'm doing well. The weather's most likely just a tease, so hopefully what's going to be happening during the summer. But again, we got to get through that hurdle. We definitely know weathers like this is common here in this time of day, this time of year. So looking forward to it, man. Raw, I have to say, like, building up towards WrestleMania and building up towards obviously what we're looking forward to in Philadelphia, it seems like Raw and SmackDown for the last month or so, or maybe even two, I can go back, have been just hitting home runs left and right. Gotta say, we're gonna be recapping Raw now, and just this one just left something was missing. Basically, it just I mean, they all can't be home runs, right? So this one definitely left something to the imagination, something that wasn't good for a 3 hour show, which is rare to say nowadays. But hey, it does happen. And obviously, Revolution happened. Sting's last match. A lot of thank yous going out on social media for Sting. It's surreal. I think most people thought that at this stage of Sting's career is already over to begin with, and he showed you he still had the fountain of youth, and recapping that as well of the card of what happened as well when we broke it down, and we were wrong on a lot of things. So definitely looking forward to this one. It seems like, geez, like the closer we get to WrestleMania, the more and more we're going to be doing shows like this. So looking forward to it.
Let's talk about that then. Let's just do a whole turnaround here. Let's just recap then Revolution because it's still fresh up on our minds from this weekend. So let's start from there. Obviously, we're trying to recap the weekend into what happened now into your start of the week. So we're gonna get your week started. So let's wrap up actually the weekend with your Revolution recap. So Sting got his send off, but we did talk about one that we did get right, and that was Will Ospreay and maybe Konechike, Takashita taking a probably a match of the night or maybe a show stealing match. And I think they did. I think we're not going to talk about all the matches here because obviously you want to, get to the other stuff. But putting a ribbon on this one, though, this one obviously opened up a lot of eyes. This one, of course, it was maybe a match that suited the AEW fan, and it obviously was a back and forth and again exciting matchup. You can check on social media. Everyone loved it. Everyone loves Will Ospreay's offense. And both guys are very talented. And you can definitely see that these are the bright spots for AEW. Now, whether or not they decide to go full throttle with these two guys, then that's one thing. But as far as the immediate future, these two guys are going to hold a huge spot in Tony Khan's lineup. Let's talk about Will Ospreay, man. So we talked about whether it was, going to be a successful matchup here, pitting him against a person of the family, of the Don Callis family. And obviously, people didn't mind. They loved the matchup. This is a guy, obviously, who at the press conference, obviously wants to be the man. Can he be the man from what you saw on Sunday?
What I saw from Sunday is I saw everything that AEW signed up for. They signed because they wanted this Will Ospreay. And then there are questions going about, for him and Takashita, should this been something that wasn't really promoted. It was really a match put together. But at the end of the day, they delivered in the ring. Crowd was going crazy for this match. It was one that you and I were looking forward to. But can he be the guy? Yeah, of course he can, especially in AEW. My question has always been, and hey, listen, Will Ospreay has always been the person to admit it, especially when he did his last interview with our boy Chris Van Vliet, where this is style that he does. And we talk about, for example, and the first person pops in my mind is a guy like Bryan Danielson, right? Sometimes you have to adjust as time goes by your style. And Will Ospreay is a high flying, hard hitting style. I mean, just look at the match, for example. We're not going to go over and move for move and whatever happened, but that was a hard hitting match for your first one in AEW. So now you set the bar pretty high for yourself, Will Ospreay. Yes, he can be the man, I feel, because the crowd there loves him, respects him, appreciates everything he did in New Japan Pro Wrestling. Can he last that long? Again, he hasn't been known for having a lot of injuries, but again, as we all know, Jeff Father Time is undefeated, and eventually all that stuff does catch up to you. So Will Ospreay has the talent, has the people behind him, regardless whether they like him or dislike him, they want to cheer him or boo him. You can't help but respect him. So where that goes from here, and again, it was pretty awkward that he was going against the Don Callis family when they were just allies maybe a month ago. So kind of awkward there, but still, regardless of the fact, yes, he can be the man. But now my question is, where do you go from here? The bar is set so high, and now you're going to have to constantly keep outdoing yourself. We'll see, because, when we look at Tony Khan and AEW's direction, Jeff, creatively, you have momentum here. Just don't lose it.
Obviously, he has the momentum, and obviously, this is a guy who I think is going to be the face. This guy is somebody that they're going to invest in time, and I think that eventually he will be. Which, to me, now, someone made an interesting point on social media today. Eventually, Kenny Omega is going to come back, and of course, it's not a secret anymore. It looks like Kazuchika Okada is going to be in AEW. So is you have Jay White there as well. You have obviously Jay White's kind of taking a back seat in the last few months, and you have these guys that eventually you're going to get together. Although obviously health wise, you hope you can do that. Sometimes injuries kind of set that aside, but can these guys here, you have guys that in New Japan and the wrestling fan knows, can you make these guys stars? We talked about last week or last episode, they were talking about, listen, they're going to hitch themselves to hopefully a new TV deal. Hopefully, are there going to be eyes that are going to draw to them? Do they have a guy that could be a Hogan or a John Cena or a Roman Reigns? That's the question. They have talent, but can they make people that are larger than life? Out of all these guys that you see here, do you think that Tony Khan, or do they have the ability to be larger than life, or are they just wrestlers? Because the main thing that's missing here is obviously the physicality and the technique, and the wrestling is there. That's why you watch AEW. But can these guys entertain you as far as relate to these guys outside of the wrestling? Can they draw you in? That's the main question, which I still don't know what impact these guys are going to end up making in the long run.
Well, to follow up on what I said about Will Ospreay, Jeff, yeah, I do feel all these guys you just mentioned, from the Kenny Omegas to the Okadas to the Will Ospreays to the even the Jay Whites, who I've publicly said I think he's overrated, but at the same time I think he's been so underutilized in AEW. They can all be stars, but if we're going to use and compare them to the levels of a John Cena, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Hulk Hogan, The Rock, I think Roman Reigns right now, because he is the guy in the WWE, right? I think they fall short, all of them, because it's a different sphere. I hate to be the one to say it too, and I always dreaded the word, but now I kind of understand it as time goes by. We tend to get a little bit wiser, hopefully. I don't fit the demographic anymore in terms of WWE, in terms of they're not going to give you bell to bell all the time, but they're going to give you a story. They're going to give you things that intrigue you about it. It's entertainment, as they call it, sports entertainment. When you look at the genre that AEW tries to adhere to, try to please, it's the wrestling fans, the die-hardcore wrestling fan, and there's a lot of them too. But in terms of the demographic, there's not a big, in terms of, you're missing a huge, a bigger chunk of the pie if you're Tony Khan and AEW, which is why I think they've been struggling a little bit, because it feels like in some point sometimes fantasy booking. So yes, they can be stars. My biggest question is, can Tony Khan and their creative team bringing them up to that level? I mean, granted, there's the money there to support the shows and, to put publicity out there and promotion for the product, but how are you doing it? That's the one skill that I didn't learn or didn't appreciate the most until obviously I got older, and you and I have been doing this now for a while in terms of the show and kind of seeing how one makes a star, right? They have all the potential. But I think there are certain factors when you look at Kenny and Will Ospreay, and you look at Okada, and you look at even Jay White, right? The one thing that they all share is they can wrestle. These guys can go bell to bell. But the biggest thing that still we have yet to see, the only person I thought that could successfully do it and have did it to a certain point, despite everything working against them, was MJF. Because besides all these great maneuvers and wrestling psychology they can do in the ring, Jeff, and tell a story in the ring, a guy like MJF was the only one there, besides CM Punk in a short stint there, that can connect to the audience, that could draw you into the building just by talking. And right now, you don't have a lot of that in AEW. So there's the potential there. But the biggest question, Jeff, that I'm asking you now, do you think Tony Khan and Creative can get them to that point?
That's the thing too, right? You don't want to bet against Tony Khan, but when it comes to these, I still have not been proven otherwise. So I don't know. I don't know. If you had to say yes or no, because I'm not copping out of this question, I'm going to say no because I haven't been shown. I think
If you
that
had the ability of choosing anybody in the roster right now, even the people we just mentioned too, who's the one guy you would want to build it around? Let's
oh,
just go to MJF because he's not there right now. But who'd you want to build around, be the face of the company?
Will Ospreay.
Will Ospreay. Okay.
Here's the thing too,
I
and
always thought it was Kenny, but that ship
know,
kind of sailed away to a certain degree.
he's kind of taken a back burner even before that.
Yeah.
After he got injured, he came back, didn't really vie for that world championship. Kind of was content with being in the trios. So obviously, whenever they want to, they could pull the trigger on that. But I'm not saying he's that towards the end anywhere near it, but he's on that other side as far as like, okay, we saw vintage Kenny Omega, not to steal from Michael Cole, but we saw that peak of Kenny Omega at Ring of Honor and before AEW started. So when AEW had just started, we were seeing peak Kenny Omega. So I don't know what he's thinking. So I'm going to go with who's available right now. And you mentioned MJF would be the guy. Seriously, I'm not sure if I like him as a face yet, but obviously they had no choice because the fans were just cheering everything he did.
Well, here's the thing, Jeff. Even as a baby face, which most people, and me myself included, didn't like very much, but I'll give credit where credit's due. MJF did a very good job to play that role. Sometimes it doesn't come natural and people can't pull it off. MJF did a really good job in his own way of doing it. But as a heel, he was still, to me, one of the major, I hate using that word, pillars, but he was one of the huge cornerstones of AEW in terms of when you thought AEW, you would think of these ex-WWE guys, but then one guy that always was in that group was MJF.
Yeah, again, and if he was there, he'd definitely be a guy, but he's not. So I'm going to say Will Ospreay. I don't know yet if Okada is going to be able to relate to the fans just because of the language barrier. But again, though, if you're not vying for that novice wrestling fan, then that's not really going to matter. The thing is, you have to be open to open yourself up to other avenues. You already have that target audience. You don't want to beat that up because you're never going to have that. You don't want to beat it to death because you're never going to have that growth. You're not going to. You're just going to be a small mom and pop shop. And even though you're backed up by billions of dollars that Tony has and his father has, and that's fine, you eventually want to make a profit. I eventually want to see a gain. I eventually want to see that. So for us, why are you in business for? Is it just a fantasy book and give the wrestlers opportunities? Fine, but if you're a company, if you're Tony Khan, you have a sports franchise like he does with the football teams in the English Premier League, and you have the Jaguars. You want to win, right? You want to win something. You want to have a profit. Now, are they ever going to beat WWE? I don't think so, but they want to turn a profit. They want to get a huge deal here come up from Warner Brothers here eventually when the deal comes up. And they mentioned about 2025, and I think that most likely they might have brokered a deal already, because if Tony Khan is just talking and there's no substance towards it, then that's kind of weird that he did, right? Because once they talked about that growth and he kind of talked ballsy about 2025, I was like, okay, there's something going on here. That they're really in advanced talks because, I've been caught of talking about stuff before they happen, right? Don't put the chickens before they hatched or whatever.
So, the cart before the horse, I know. But listen, before I'll let you finish your point though, and this isn't taking a shot at Tony though, but isn't that kind of Tony's MO though? Sometimes he'll just say things when there's no backing or there's one reason.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I would hope not in such a big, conversation as far as the TV deal, because with Warner Brothers, everything you hear is that they speak positive about it. And I think we caught our friend Andrew Zarian on his podcast, the Madman Podcast, talking about how the Warner Brothers loves everything they see from AEW, and it just scratches my head because obviously he's in the know, so obviously he's talking to people that are up there. But I'm just like, what are you seeing that I'm not?
I think he's seeing the potential of what it can be.
Yeah, but
here's the thing: when we looked at AEW from the beginning, it could do no wrong, right? Even though there are clear mistakes and clear errors that we could see in the foreseeable future, we thought those mistakes and those issues were going to be addressed. Not so much now. You're seeing the attendance. You're seeing all this stuff going on right now in terms of the locker room and their demeanor and how they feel, and Tony kind of talking off the cuff for no apparent reason, right? But they have this too. I mean, if you're anybody right now and you have the ability of purchasing something to be liable to WWE, the only thing that has the likelihood potential, I wouldn't say competing with WWE, but being that strong number two would be AEW. So I can understand why television deal would want to be done with them. Granted, maybe not for the money they wanted to get, but still, I mean, I don't know the specifics of that too, or because we don't know any details about it, but I'm pretty sure there's still potential there. Granted, as bad as it's going on right now, there's still potential for AEW.
Yeah, but again, though, like to me, it's like a whole, I guess, different era. I guess maybe dating myself because I go by the ratings and the wars and everything was about those
You
ratings.
watch a lot of 82 weeks.
83 weeks.
Oh, 83. Sorry, I didn't count that 1 week.
Don't cut Eric short there. I'll be the first to tell you 83. I think honestly though, you see the ratings, you see the low numbers by Rampage and by Collision, and for just to hear them mention that they see a growth in those three shows, I'm just like, okay, so the expectations of the bar is pretty low then. So like if you look at these empty crowds, and then I guess maybe they love what they see in All In, they love that market. That's what I'm saying. Like I just don't know. I would love for Andrew or just to be a little bit more specific. What exactly is it they're saying? Is the library that they're going to put some of the stuff on HBO Max? Are they going to, are they going to do that because that's the rumor that they're going to have a library there? And I'm like, okay, that's cool. But I just still don't know if it's worth what I'm paying. I would be like, hey, listen, man, we'll bring you back, but listen, maybe a little bit cheaper. I don't know what kind of deal they're going to have, but as far as digressing, right, we're talking about that, and it just because it was brought up to this week in the media call. Let's go back to the stars. Yes, there's star potential out there, but are there larger than life guys, or are they just larger than life wrestlers? That's the main question.
I get your point there, Jeff. I just feel my biggest gripe with AEW is the fact that, yes, you just said the potential and there's stars there too. I just don't think right now, creatively, who's running the things right now, just Tony knows how to make a star.
Is there a big man at all that's a star?
Hmm?
Is there? Are they afraid to make a big man a star? Like Wardlow, right? Wardlow there had for a few seconds. It seemed like he was running away training. Nothing could stop him. He was going to be the next guy. And then for some reason they decided to cut his hair. And all of a sudden they started losing to MJF. And all of a sudden then he disappears. And now he comes back. Finally they listen and they make him win that matchup. So now he's a contender for the AEW World Championship. Whatever they decide to do that, but had they not done that, though, like, are they afraid to push big men? Right? Lance Archer was in, I think he was doing interviews and stuff like that. He's never really had a legit push. Hobbs, I don't understand. The guy has everything, and they don't push him more than they do. Like, are they afraid that these guys are going to outshine the smaller wrestlers? Or they're afraid to put them in with these? I don't know a big star that they've made that's over like 6'2", 6'3". I don't. If I'm missing,
You're making my point for me. Yeah.
they
They don't know how to identify what a star is. And for the people you just mentioned, let's say Hobbs is one that you mentioned very much, you speak very highly of, right? Yeah, I could see this guy being a star, being a mega star, still, very raw in terms, very green in terms of what you can do with him. But in the ring, he's great, has a great look about him. But could it be maybe? And again, I'm not saying this is the case, and maybe it's just speculation on my end, but for a true wrestling fan like Tony, maybe like, I don't want to fall into the Vince category where I'm just making big guys and big gigantic men as the stars and the smaller guys don't have a shot, and he wants to be fair and kind of make their star the everyday kind of guy like a Brian Danielson, for example. I don't know. I don't know if that's his idea. I don't know if that's his mindset going in, because you clearly see it. I see potential in there too, but the creative direction, which is everything every wrestling fan complains about and talks about, right, is always the thing. Oh, they're not pushing this guy. They're holding this guy back, and they don't know what to do with this person. They had an opportunity, and they blew it. Yeah, of course, it's easy for us to say that too, but are they seeing it? And more importantly, they have. I mean, with the Vince era, and now we're looking at the Triple H era, Jeff. We can kind of now tell with Triple H where his creative direction is going in terms of what's a star in his idea, because we knew what Vince's was in the past, right? I still don't know what Tony looks at as a star, what he thinks as a star is. He loves Brian Danielson. He fell in love and was being gaga over CM Punk. Could those be his potential, what he thinks a star is? Maybe. I don't know.
And then you're gonna come back at me and be like, well, Samoa Joe's the champion. Yeah, but Samoa Joe is, I mean, he's
a horrible impersonation of me, by the way.
No, I'm talking about the IWC. People are going to watch
Okay.
the smart marks behind behind the computer. They're gonna be, well, Samoa Joe's, yeah, Samoa Joe's champ, but he's six one, 6'2", whatever like that too. But he's all right, fine, he's a big guy. But like I'm talking about like the Wardlows. Are you afraid to invest? Like look at Jade Cargill. Never really was the TBS Women's Champion, but you never saw her in Britt Baker. You never saw her interact with anybody like that. You never did. You kind of saw her on her own. Never intermixing with that. And I know they had the separate championship, but you would have liked to see maybe a little bit more, better quality of opponents. And then what happened? She became larger than life. And where did she go? Are they afraid to make somebody larger than life because they know that next step is not going to be there? It has to be going to WWE. Maybe, but again, though, that's something that we're going to see what happens. But again, Ospreay would definitely be a candidate. And then we go to obviously Wardlow, who obviously won that. We'll see what happens with that. But now we're going to go to the proper send off for Sting. And listen, obviously, it's on the record, it's on camera, it's on our clips that I felt that Sting would have decided to pay it forward and have the Young Bucks win the tag team titles instead of what happened at Revolution. But how can you get mad? Honestly, it was a perfect night. As much as I criticize Tony Khan, or maybe there's stuff to criticize, that could not have been a more perfect tribute and ending to a career than what they did. They honestly know how to appreciate their stars of the past. There's no question about that. And they have the utmost respect for Sting. And that was, without a doubt, if you're a star and this is your final match to send off, that was a proper send off. They couldn't have done any better. The Young Bucks, obviously, you never question their in-ring ability. You never question that stuff. You know they're going to show up, and they did a tremendous job. All that other stuff that happened to his sons in there, minus the Darby Allin stuff, which I did not like personally, but what an amazing send-off for the icon legend Sting.
There are a lot of wrestling traditionalists that would probably hate what happened at Revolution in terms of that's not the way in the time-honored tradition of pro wrestling, right, or sports entertainment, whichever one you want to call it. That's not the way you go out. But it has been proven that it does work, and there have been certain individuals. And the first person that pops in my head, I mean, listen, he had Edge retire as world champion, Adam Copeland, but that was due to a neck injury. He couldn't really compete anymore. He was willing to drop the title, but never reached that point. He retired his first retirement as world champion. And then Trish Stratus went out as champion, her first retirement when she went away. So it has happened before, but the traditionalists will believe that's not the case. In this scenario, I would tend to agree with you too, Jeff. Regardless, we thought it was going to be because Sting was more of an old school guy, and this is the proper way you go about when you end your career and you leave, type of thing, right? I think honestly, no matter what, even this, how can you get mad? Because at the end of the day, it was really just the whole Revolution was about celebration of Sting. Granted, the world title was theoretically you would think is the main event. This was the main event. We had a lot of matches that you and I talked about during the preview, and a lot of ones we could dissect and break down too. And the whole Darby Allin stuff, like I said, it's not your cup of tea, and neither is it mine. But regardless of that, there's nothing that could have ruined it. You had Sting's sons, who were basically clones of him out there, of different versions of him. It was just one of the perfect ways you can send off Sting. I'm sure was probably, if he didn't have that, there would always be that thing in the back of his mind. I would think, I didn't end it the way I wanted to, and I felt there was still more left to be done, left more on the table, and I think it's all done. And at the end of it, more than anything, certain times you see people who retire, Jeff, and whether it's sports athletes or pro wrestlers, you just tell it hurts them. Sting the entire time during the whole process, and especially that clip you showed me too. I'm sure a lot of people saw on social media where people were leaving voicemail messages. Ooh. And how it affected him too. And he didn't cry or anything like that, but I think he was at peace with it. And when you see somebody who's at peace with it, it just brings a smile to your face. And what an amazing career by Sting. Us here at HSP are just so happy the fact that we got a chance to see him live perform at a WrestleMania. Never thought I'd ever get a chance to see Sting live, and I did. And I'm thankful for that moment. It will be in my mind forever. And his legacy is cemented. It's not that he's a Hall of Famer, but his legacy will go on like the likes of, my opinion, Hulk Hogan and those types of individuals, because it's a long legacy you can't ignore, because the guy like Sting, he did it the right way. He never, we all have egos to a certain degree, but he never seemed to have an ego about him. It was always about doing the job and doing the job well, and a job well done, Sting.
Man, not a bad word can be said about the icon Sting. And again, what a amazing send off, man. That weekend, everything leading up to that was simply perfect, man. And again, who can get mad?
Hey, there's only one Mr. Perfect, Jeff.
And you send people in Greensboro with a smile on their face too, because people be thinking, ah, man, he shouldn't have lost. And you didn't want that. And obviously, it was the right decision to make it the main event. I know people were talking about, they were thinking about making Samoa Joe the triple threat match, the main event. But honestly, you can't for that night. That night, the main event is farewell to Sting. And
I
obviously,
wouldn't want to follow that. I wouldn't want to follow that.
good for Sting. And then, of course, Samoa Joe retains the championship as well. So everyone that wants to brush back at me is like, well, Samoa Joe. Well, let's see. Samoa Joe, I think, obviously a tremendous wrestler too. But again, he's also has his resume. He's already been built. I'm talking about building up the next big guy, that next big star. You know what? Something else was shocking and surprisingly shocking, as everyone wants to rip WWE, saying, "Oh man, how TNA is offering congratulations to Sting." Everyone is offering their heartfelt appreciation to Sting. Oh, but WWE is promoting NXT Roadblock. Well, all those people, you got egg on your faces, because what did Michael Cole and Pat McAfee do? They congratulated Sting on his retirement. Pat McAfee even was able to get, that was a heck of a match that night. So
Yeah.
they're able to get that under there. And hey, they mentioned on programming. They didn't put it out on social media. They actually said it on their programming. So there you go, folks. A lot of people who just couldn't wait to get on their keyboards and say, well, WWE did it. Well, there you go. Egg on your face on that one. You can't say crap about that, because they did. They recognized, they acknowledged the stinger. All right. So it's been a while since we've been able to recap shows. And I think hopefully
Just a recap. We have to recap this one.
yeah, hopefully we can do more of these twos as we're on the road to WrestleMania. But let's give you a quick raw recap here on the HSP podcast. So obviously we're gonna get Seth Rollins and Cody Rhodes confronting The Rock and Roman Reigns in Dallas, Texas. We're gonna get that. Obviously, I think what set the tone of the night, and I think everybody was talking about, was Seth Rollins' comparison for The Rock, and I think calling him Diarrhea Dwayne kind of maybe set the tone of the night. And listen, I'm not going to get on these people as much, because obviously Seth Rollins to me has a nice built resume already. But if you want to attack him because he said Diarrhea Dwayne, go at it if you want to. I'm not going to harp on it, but I think that kind of led a little bit of a down night the rest of the way, because I just think that kind of set the tone. What do you think about Diarrhea Dwayne, Trendsetter?
Wow, that name's giving me diarrhea right now. I've had diarrhea, Jeff. It's not pleasant. Bloated, you're uncomfortable the entire time, and I'm pretty much sure people were uncomfortable the entire night after that. I'm not going to make a big thing out of it. He tried something, and like I said, they all can't be home runs. And when you had Seth go out there, I'm sure he was thinking about something. I don't know whether he had it pre-planned in his head that he was probably going to go that route. The only thing I would say is, try to try not to fully go out that way next time. But yeah, regardless, like you said, Seth Rollins has created a tremendous resume of himself, of having opportunities where he's hit more home runs than he's struck out, and that was a strikeout. You have to call it like it is. That was a strikeout. Granted, the fans were chanting it for a little bit, but I don't think it's going to carry any weight. I don't think it's going to be made into a T-shirt being sold in the merch stands. Who knows? People will buy anything nowadays, so I'm pretty sure it would if people did it. But yeah, I don't see that going. So I don't know if it set the tone. I think right now what I'm seeing right now is that there's build up there. They're trying to build this anticipation for the obviously meet between the four men at SmackDown. That's everyone's going to be looking forward to that. But it does feel a little bit like Raw's lost a little bit of steam, especially this week. The last couple weeks have been pretty good building up to it. And listen, it's a long road. I know I say it 100 times on this show because I always said, oh, WrestleMania season is almost around the corner. Now we're here. And it's just one of those things. Hopefully it doesn't carry itself over to next week for Raw. And like I joked with you, man, we're going to recap Raw. Out of all the Raws to recap, we got to recap this one, right? Which kind of
So like I said,
failed a little bit. But yeah, I think it's that. They just lost steam. And for some reason, it's just they're looking so forward to it that they kind of messed up.
tag and matches, the vibe was just weird. You know what I mean? The vibe was just different. So it just felt like, you want all these to have like some importance, especially when you only have like a few of these as you head to WrestleMania. So you want all these to have some excitement, but you're gonna get the obvious response to Cody and to the Rock from Cody and Seth freaking Rollins, and obviously we find out that Seth Rollins is going to co-main event. His matchup is going to be a part of the co-main event against Drew McIntyre for the World Heavyweight Championship, and Drew McIntyre continues the home runs. He's just amazing. I don't know if you saw his post. I don't know. I don't know if you call it tweet anymore, but I'm just going to say tweet on X, where he posted playing CM Punk song outside of the arena with the fans. I think that was hilarious. I think Drew just continues to be that the best work of his career, and he beats Jey Uso. And I'm thinking to myself, man, Jey is so over, and he's the only guy that I think can lose a lot and still nothing happened to him. He's like Teflon right now, but I just don't like the fact that he's losing a lot. And obviously, like Jimmy's there. The only thing that bothers me is Jey. He's right there. Go after him. Go kick your brother's ass. He's cost you championships, matches for so long. How much are you going to take? I mean, what is taking him so long to pull the trigger? Just jump him, man. If you've lost all these matches, why do you care if you lose to Drew? Go get your revenge on Jimmy. And Jimmy has just gotten the best of him for so many weeks now. They're just waiting. I guess they want that anticipation where Jimmy's gonna get where Jay's gonna get the best of him. But right now, it's been all Jimmy Uso here. And obviously, Drew is on an amazing winning streak. I'll be shocked. I'll tell you right now, I'll be shocked if he doesn't win that championship at WrestleMania Trendsetter.
Oh yeah, well, that's another discussion for another day. When you talk about the whole scenario, and just go really back real quick about the whole Cody Rhodes Seth Rollins segment. I think they're really milking this, and the crowd's starting to get a little frustrated and a little impatient. So I think that's part of it too. Why this Raw wasn't necessarily a good one. As for Jey, I don't know what it's like for you to have a brother, Jeff, but regardless of how much your brother's backstabbed you and been conniving and manipulative and has done everything to piss you off, and all you want to do is just smack him across the face, it's still your brother. So I don't know. I can kind of understand that point too. Like, you want it. We know where your values are, Jeff. Anybody betrays you, it's open game for you, right? Yeah. So but for me, I can understand the turmoil in Jay's mind, because when he left the bloodline, he thought he was leaving with his brother. Wasn't the case. Jimmy showed his true colors in terms of he's a guy who can't stand on his own 2 feet as a character. So now he needs that support or that stability. Unlike Jey taking a shot, going singles, and it's all building up towards their match at WrestleMania. It's something they've always dreamed about having. They've mentioned in several interviews, and it looks like from where it's going now, that's what's going to happen. But as anything, WWE always wants to kind of, what they've done with the whole Cody Rhodes story, right? They want to slowly make you wait and wait and wait. Like, why isn't Jey doing something? It'll happen, and I guess at that point when it happens, let's say it's a week before WrestleMania, it'll be a huge payoff, But again, that's the scenario right now where it seems like Jimmy's conflicted. And Jay's conflicted, and Jimmy's just that look of pure evil. I don't care. You betrayed me. I don't need you as a brother anymore, and all this stuff too. So it's I get your point. And God, heaven forbid anybody in your family betrays you, Jeff. Would not want to be around you, but at the same time, I see the conflict there too. But again, it's all built up for that, so can't hate on it too much.
Definitely don't want to scorn me there. Like I said, like we're probably going to get that matchup at WrestleMania, so that's another great matchup that people are going to look forward to watching. So Drew McIntyre right now seems to be like the guy heading to WrestleMania, has that momentum, and again, he makes such a great point about the fact that Seth Rollins right now is not focusing on what he should be doing, and that is representing Raw with that World Heavyweight Championship. He wants to interject himself here, wants to interject himself there, wants to be like an addict. He's addicted towards like the fame and wants to go here and there and everything like that. And he's a junkie, right? I mean, just amazing references by Drew McIntyre. So
he's an attention junkie, Jeff. And the thing is, I agree that Drew McIntyre is doing the best work of his life, but also at the same time, to close the end of Raw as Seth Rollins runs to help Jey Uso, about to be attacked by Jimmy. I always get the two mixed up for some reason. You think they're related or they're twins, right? Drew looks at Seth running by and just has a bewildered look on his face. And even at the end, when he held the title over his face and said, "You need to focus on this," it still doesn't feel as if, yes, we know Drew McIntyre is a bad guy. He's a heel, but a lot of what he's saying, there's a lot of truth behind it. There's a lot of confliction going on between Seth, but also I feel there's some conflict going on with Drew as well, because although Drew no longer cares and he's looking out for himself, he wants his moment, right? That was stolen or didn't have happen when the first time he went for the title at WrestleMania. He still feels as if there's some conflict between there, and he's doing the best work I've ever seen. Like
Yeah,
Coach, I felt he has had this within him the entire time. It just took a crew, a creative, to believe that he could do it and to let him go out there. And more importantly, Jeff, like you and I say, we made fun of the Seth Rollins comment, diarrhea, Dwayne. Just go ahead and try it. If
yeah.
you fail, but you tried and you are authentically yourself.
That sword stuff was not working. It was just to
Nah,
me.
it wasn't.
Obviously, like, come on now, man. Like, another prop here, and I'm glad they got rid of that. I'm glad that now Drew is doing his own thing. I think that again, the best work that he's ever done,
Yeah.
company. So obviously, he's got all the momentum now heading into WrestleMania. And I kind of believe that Seth Rollins, he knows he's beaten him twice. He knows that he can beat Drew McIntyre, and I think he's overlooking Drew McIntyre heading into WrestleMania. He's only focused on the bloodline. Remember, everyone's focused on the bloodline. Drew, once he stopped focusing on the bloodline, and once he got his shit straight, and once he focused on the main prize, was the WWE World Championship,
Yeah.
everything changed, and everyone's focused. Look at Sami Zayn. He's kind of reverted away from the bloodline. He wants to become a champion, and look where Sami Zayn is. Sami Zayn is in the six-man gauntlet match on Monday Night Raw next week in Houston. It's going to be him, Bronson Reed, Shinsuke Nakamura, Chad Gable, Ricochet, and JD McDonough. And obviously, if you've paid attention to Chad Gable the last few weeks, he's making a compelling story here where it's redemption for him. Obviously, we saw what happened when he got beaten before by Gunther in front of his kids, in front of his daughter crying, and obviously I believe everyone's pulling for Chad Gable to win this one and move on to WrestleMania. But it'd be a great story for Sami Zayn as well. Obviously, Nakamura, I'm not sure if this is going to be his way to make, for his WrestleMania story. I don't know Bronson Reed either. I definitely know Ricochet is not in the cards to go have a match at WrestleMania against Gunther. So I'm really thinking this is going to be a way for Chad Gable to get redemption. And if he's the guy to beat Gunther, what a great underdog story it is, because Chad Gable has all the talent in the world. And for us, we thought that they had given up on that story, right? They just had stopped talking about it. Obviously, people were saying, well, was that it for Gable? They put him back, to where he was. But obviously now it's a redemption story for him, and he's making a great point, and he's making a great case, and it's a great story. So hopefully Chad Gable is the one that comes out victorious.
Yeah, I feel the same way too. I mean, it's between Sami Zayn and Chad Gable, these two guys that the crowd and the audience is behind, and they want to root for. For Sami, you're rooting for him because he seems like he's lost now. He seems like he's trying to find, I wouldn't say an identity, but find a purpose where he is. If it's not for the title, it's got to be for something meaningful. He said it so eloquently during the backstage segment where, like, he has an opportunity now to create history, to defeat probably one of the most dominant champions, second to Roman Reigns, obviously, in the Intercontinental Champion in Gunther. To do that on a huge stage like WrestleMania does wonders for your career and does wonders for yourself personally, right? So you feel for Sami. As for Chad too, they did a great job, and for everyone that thought that, I saw Chad Gable in NXT and just looked at this guy, man. This guy can go in the ring, but the biggest question was, could he connect? And then what he did, he tried his best with the Shorty G gimmick, and that was just, you're never going to win on that. It was failure to begin with. There's no way of ever coming on top with that. But then what he did with Alpha Academy and just his ability through his own weird way to connect with the audience, and the audience now stands behind him. I tell you, man, if there was a mini version of Kurt, it would have been Chad Gable, because this guy is so funny, so good, and everybody in the back has so much tremendous amount of respect for him. So I think it's going to be Chad Gable. I think there's a great story there, and how personal it is now, and how they've driven those vignettes of him doing a great job with WWE Creative in terms of doing that. I think that's what's going to happen, and we might see it occur at WrestleMania. I hope that's the case. I feel for Sami if it's not, but right now all signs, in my opinion, point to Chad Gable. So I got him going in this one.
Was able to make a lot of that Shorty G gimmick, and then of course the Alpha Academy, he was able to still be that believable wrestler that great technician, and still add comedy to it. So he's done a lot. So he definitely deserves this opportunity if he gets it at WrestleMania. So we'll see what happens in
If
that.
anybody was going to be Kurt Angle's illegitimate son, it should have been Chad Gable. I'm sorry. I'll say it right now here on the show. That should have been him.
And so we'll see what happens next week in Houston for Raw. Obviously, a lot of people are kind of upset that Becky Lynch kind of put a little, I guess not put an end to it, but kind of halt to the Liv Morgan Revenge Tour at the Elimination Chamber. And a lot of people are. It's amazing how people now they think that they speak because they got the whole Rock thing changed and brought Cody back into the picture. That they think that if they complain enough for Liv Morgan, they're going to add her into the matchup with Rhea Ripley and Becky Lynch. They might. At the end of the day, it might be where they're going. It might be a triple threat. You never know. They might add maybe Nia Jax in it too because she may have a claim for that title. But for now, it's Rhea Ripley and Becky Lynch. But Liv Morgan now, obviously, a little upset last week that Becky Lynch interfered in her matchup with Nia Jax. And again, this week, Liv Morgan interfered in her match, in Becky's matchup against Nia Jax. And therefore, we get next week Becky Lynch and Liv Morgan on Raw. And listen, I love me some Liv Morgan. So if they add her into this matchup, I really wouldn't mind. But I think people want to see Becky and Rhea, one-on-one. But if you add Liv, are you really going to be mad?
Yeah.
People love Liv Morgan. So,
Listen, it's all about stories, isn't it, right? I mean, yes, everyone wants to see Becky and Rhea, but Liv has a lot of say in the story, too, because of what Rhea did to her. Nia has still unfinished business with Rhea, so it makes sense, but like you're right. I'm sure a lot of people just want to see Becky and Rhea. But you know what? I'll agree with Liv. Becky Lynch is selfish. It's all about her. She wants all the attention. Geez, it's bad enough you stole Ric Flair's moniker as the man, and now you want to go about every single time there's a title picture, she wants to be involved in that story. I'm not saying her personally, but the character is so. And I guess she married the right guy, right? Because she's a junkie too. She wants all the attention on her. So it's like I guess it runs in the family. I don't know.
Yeah. So, but again, nothing wrong though if Liv wants to interject herself. So we'll see what happens though next week in Houston with Liv Morgan and Becky Lynch. And then, again, you can't complain. I'm glad that actually Liv Morgan after coming back from injury and the whole drug scenario that happened, it just it didn't make really sense for that. But I'm glad that she's in that picture though, at least for the title. And then obviously we found out who the first member of the WWE Hall of Fame is going to be. And it's going to be none other than the Advocate. It's going to be the special counsel to the tribal chief.
The wise man.
The wise man, Paul Heyman, the first member of the WWE Hall of Fame in Philadelphia, of course, ECW country, as first reported by the Associated Press, right? I also want to make sure I give them credit for it, like WWE gave them credit for it. But what can you say, man? Long overdue. And obviously, in Philadelphia, you think of ECW all these years later. And of course, that's going to be an unbelievable night as immediately after SmackDown, the Hall of Fame will begin and he will be inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. And there is one question surrounding Paul Heyman's induction, Trendsetter, and who is going to induct Paul Heyman. We put a little tweet out there when we found out the news, and a lot of people pulling for CM Punk to be the guy. A lot of people want CM Punk to host. A lot of people want him to be part of WrestleMania. I think he will be part of it. I don't think he's a host kind of guy, but if you surround a night of CM Punk being the guy to induct Paul Heyman, I think that is a really great way to bring in CM Punk into the fold for WrestleMania weekend. But first and foremost, your thoughts on Paul Heyman being inducted to the Hall of Fame, and who do you think should be the guy to induct the Advocate, the special counsel to our tribal chief Roman Reigns?
Joey Styles. Without a doubt.
Joey Styles.
No, I mean, I'm joking with that too. I mean, I'm sure people know who he is if you're an ECW.
Oh my God.
ECW fan and love ECW. Listen, man, you couldn't have picked the perfect moment for it to happen in Philadelphia, where it's not his hometown, it's not his home state, but people love him for what he built in ECW. And to this day, how many years, decades later, it still holds relevancy where people are still chanting. You get a lot of those chants during the Hall of Fame, ECW, or I say ECW.
Yeah.
So, In terms of who inducts him, real quick, I think CM Punk makes a lot of sense. You could say Tommy Dreamer, Bubba, a lot of ECW originals, maybe RVD, but I think CM Punk makes the most sense in terms of the friendship they have, the closeness, and the fact that if it wasn't for Paul Heyman, I feel, and who's the original Paul Heyman guy? It was CM Punk, right? It there's that bond between the two of them that I think it fits well for CM Punk to do it, and again, be part of WrestleMania weekend, and who knows, maybe be part of WrestleMania in some capacity of the rumors that I've been hearing. I'm sure you've been hearing too, Jeff, of what could possibly he be doing at WrestleMania. Granted, it won't be wrestling, but still be there. For Paul Heyman, man, there's no one person in the world. If you were to ask me, like, if you could spend 5 minutes talking to somebody, honestly, with all due respect, it probably wouldn't be a pro wrestler, probably wouldn't be, and like a Jericho or anything like that. If you could pick 5 minutes to talk to somebody, get some vital information, it would be a guy like Paul Heyman. As much as people, say bad things about him and whatever, this guy's a hustler. This guy is somebody who never took no for an answer. When you saw his biography on the W Network, I remember watching that over and over and over again. The one thing I get from Paul Heyman over and over again that he said, even through the DVD which was the Rise and Fall of ECW, which I can't find that DVD for the life of me. It was such a great DVD, and I will find it one day and watch it. But the biggest thing I ever heard from Paul Heyman, and he lived through his own advice too, was you cannot achieve success if you fear failure. And he is somebody who took chance after chance, even when there's probably no money in his account. When he was sitting down, people would make stories. He'd be sitting in the
Wow.
locker room, and and in 5 minutes would go into his little bowling bag and pull out a piece of paper. Who's over there? All right, they got a match here. Just creatively, one of the most. I mean, you have the Pat Pattersons, of course, and the Dusty Rhodes, but in terms of another genius, I feel in terms of how to get something across, how to put somebody over, in terms of wrestling psychology. How could you not think of Paul Heyman being on that Mount Rushmore as well? Of all the things he's accomplished in the business as a manager, as an advocate, as a special counsel, whatever you want to call it, I think he's one of the best of the best. And again, this could be another debate we could have down the road, in terms of, like, you think of Bobby the Brain Heenan, which I know everyone holds deal into their heart of how great he was and ahead of his time he was. And the list goes on and on. He's just one that jumps off the top of my head. And I would just think Paul Heyman's right there. A guy who would never be able to perform in the ring, but still could captivate you and has this amazing way of manipulating the audience. And to me, Paul Heyman is one of those top guys that you just, it's a benefit that he's in the industry. It's a benefit. He's still part of WWE. For the short stint, he thought he was going to have a small role when he came back when Brock Lesnar returned the first time after his stint in UFC, and they realized that Brock couldn't speak for himself, so they brought in Paul Heyman. And from that point on, he's never looked back. And he's the kind of guy, too, that I respect, too, Jeff, because as much as people always want to talk to him about ECW, and I'm sure there'll be mentions of it, too, during his speech at the Hall of Fame, he doesn't look backwards anymore. Like he said, that was a part of my life. I appreciate it, but it's always about looking forward. And so, well earned. I don't say deserved because I don't think anybody deserves anything. Paul Heyman earned it because of his contributions to this industry. And it's going to be a great atmosphere there in Philadelphia. I got to be honest with you, Jeff. I don't really like the fact that it is after SmackDown. I kind of miss it when it was its own little event. So I'm kind of torn between that, but still, the crowd's going to be, that place is going to be filled to capacity for him and obviously the newer inductees we're going to see throughout the week.
Yeah, well, I guess they were left with no choice once they moved SmackDown to Friday nights because of the just the
Yeah.
timing and everything.
No, I get it. I get it. I understand it. I just don't like that. I like the one that was its
Of
own
course,
separate
of course,
entity.
I love that. I love that where it'd be its own event for 2.5 hours. You go sit there and you listen to the speeches, no matter how long or short they were. You'd go there and you'd pay your respects. They will
So
still
Mr. T, I didn't want to hear Mr. T talk to me.
they will still do that, but I hope though you talked about a guy that doesn't leaves the past in the past. Well, I do hope for that night he does talk about the past because that's going to be the one night where I think he'll be allowed, and I think we all would want to expect him to do so because there's got to be a lot of stuff he wants to talk about. A lot of people he might want to thank too. Obviously, Dusty being one of them. Obviously, the great Dusty story that you heard in his DVD video documentary. Again, well deserving, and again, CM Punk is possibly the guy. Obviously, they were mentioning also too maybe Stone Cold too, because without Paul Heyman, you don't see that Stone Cold Steve Austin be able to open up and be himself as he was able to do in ECW. So that might be a good one to have Stone Cold do that. But whoever does, though, I think it's going to be good. I think a lot of people are going to be uh, anticipating that night and watching him. And again, you're talking about not, no one deserves something, but he's definitely earned it. And just look at what he's done. Look at what he's done with CM Punk. Look what he's done with Brock Lesnar, and look what he's done with Roman Reigns. I mean, that is a very impressive list of people that you've worked with, and you've achieved tremendous success too. So, and also creatively is a guy that, hey, maybe needed a guy like Vince McMahon to rein him in a little bit. But a guy you cannot question his creative talent and his genius in Paul Heyman. So congratulations to that. Obviously, we'll talk about that. As we lead up to WrestleMania. But real quick, though, the last thing in the final note is we got to acknowledge the one thing that happened on SmackDown, and that is The Rock continues to draw people. That place was sold out. That excitement in Glendale, Arizona was amazing. The Rock, I mean, just to have The Rock back and have him consecutive weeks on SmackDown. We'll see him this Friday night in Dallas, Texas. But the fact that The Rock is just not skipping a beat, obviously had that 21-minute promo directed at Cody and then Seth Rollins. Obviously, it was necessary to tie up some loose ends, to tie up what he said to Cody, to tie up why Cody, Cody changing his mind. Just those things that still haven't been answered yet. Obviously, he did that, and obviously, he felt that he didn't have to be censored on live TV on SmackDown. So he's able to get that. Now we know a lot of the stuff going into that SmackDown. And the two things I got out of it is that he laid the challenge to Cody and probably Seth too in the tag team matchup. So Cody, if he wins that tag team match, then he goes on to a bloodline free WrestleMania night 2 for his championship matchup where he tries to finish the story. But if not, the bloodline will have free range. And, again, Solo could sing the national anthem. He could be a timekeeper. He could do all these things. But there is a huge stakes on night 1 that will eventually lead into what happens in night 2. And obviously, we expect Cody and Seth to accept. We expect it to be the main event on night 1. And then also, too, The Rock acknowledges Roman Reigns. But there is tension between those two, especially coming out of Roman Reigns. But it was just a fun SmackDown to watch.
Yeah, SmackDown's been the show right now everyone wants to watch because The Rock's going to be on it. I mean, no offense, but Raw, in my opinion, has been the B show for quite some time. And now with The Rock coming back and really just kind of being on SmackDown, you can't help but want to just tune in for Friday nights to watch SmackDown. Screw that date you had planned going out. Just, reschedule for another night. Schedule for Saturday anyway. Don't go out Fridays because you want to watch SmackDown. And, to a certain degree, too, what The Rock said a lot of times, just enjoy the ride, guys. That's what it is. I mean, regardless, here's the thing. Even if Rock was going to be in the main event and a lot of people would still be upset, myself included, just enjoy the ride. It's the entertainment factor of it. And it's the amazing factor that, I thought we had seen The Rock the last time when he faced John Cena, and that was it. We're no longer ever going to see him in the ring again. So the people are going to be able to see him and watch him. And let's not also forget, too, that he never answered Cody's challenge for a one-on-one match. So now he wants a tag match. What does that say about The Rock? Maybe he's not, so confident in himself anymore that, he's as good as he once was. We'll put that, we'll plant that seed in there a little bit as we talk about the main event, the main cards of WrestleMania when we get to it. But just enjoy it, man. It's fun. It's entertaining, and appreciate it because this could theoretically be The Rock's last time on the WTV in the ring. Who knows? Maybe it will be, but when it's all over, you'll be kicking yourself that you didn't enjoy the experience. So just enjoy it, guys.
Because we all expect there to be Rock and Roman Reigns next year. Don't put a damper on this one. And obviously enjoy.
I'm not putting a damper, Jeff. I'm just being what they call a realist because you just never know. They've been trying to do this for how long, and then just the timing wasn't right. How long were they trying to do Triple H and The Rock, and the time wasn't right, and we never got that final match between the two of them. What happened with Triple H and his health condition, right? So, yes, although that is in the plans, there's no guarantee it's going to happen because a lot can happen from that point on. So, if this is the last time we see The Rock, because again, was he going to face Brock Lesnar too after WrestleMania 29 when he faced John Cena, had that abdominal injury, he had that hernia, then we didn't see him anymore, and that was it. He quietly rode off into the sunset. So, this is why I live in reality and you live in a fantasy.
I would love to think that the guy who's behind TKO and who's on the board is going to be more visible now, even though if he's not in a wrestling role, hopefully he's going to be a guy that we're still going to see from time to time and his presence is still going to be felt. But I get the fact that you got to take every moment and take it day by day. So you're right. You might, heaven forbid. That's why I think it's a tag team match because, to expect The Rock to go a 20-minute match, 25-minute match solo, you're really pushing it. So obviously that's why you would
What
probably
does
get.
Solo Sikoa have to do with this? I have no idea.
I don't know either.
Mm-hmm.
But there you go. And now, of course, hopefully we'll be with you for the weekend, and then we'll talk about Friday Night SmackDown. We'll talk about Roadblock, NXT Roadblock, and how that figures into now Stand and Deliver, because we'll have a eventual main event there. And then we'll talk about Dynamite as well. So lots to get to, lots to talk about for the weekend. And we're going to bring you 2 shows here on the HSP podcast here on the Give Us a Shot Network, powered by Fast Break Coffee. We are the Jersey Wrecking Crew. Follow us on all our social media at High Spot Podcast. We are on all podcast platforms. So if you can't watch, make sure you listen to the show. And looking forward to next time we come to you. And hopefully it's this weekend with a lot of more wrestling stuff as we are on the road to WrestleMania, Trendsetter.
Yes, we are, guys. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the High Spot Podcast. We greatly appreciate it. Remember, we do this for one reason and one reason only as we get ready for the road and are on that road to WrestleMania. We do it for you, the crew.